Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Greetings, Algo artisans. Welcome to the January the 5th weekly Algo Factory market report. We're going to take a look at the charts for Bitcoin, Solana, EURUSD, GBPUSD, USDJPY, SP500, Dow and NASDAQ Futures, gold and silver. And we're going to start by taking a look at the economic data that's going to come out this week because we know that can affect the charts when it comes out. So here we are taking a look at Monday the 6th. Now this week is kind of the first week back since a lot of people and a lot of market participants have been on vacation, so we might see a little bit more action than we saw this last couple of weeks. So the first bit of data that's going to come out is at 2:30 AM EST. That's the CPI, that's inflation data for the Swiss franc, and that might have a little bit more of an impact than people expect. Next we have at 10 AM EST the ISM Services PMI and job openings. That's both purchasing managers and job data, along with later that day 7:30 PM Aussie CPI. So there's a lot of CPI data coming out, and that's year over year data. So that might make a pretty big impact on the price of the Australian dollar if you're trading Forex. Wednesday at 8:15 AM EST, non-farm employment change. So a couple of employment related data points coming out this week for claims, changes. We do have the FOMC minutes. So Wednesday might be a little bit slow up until 2 PM EST when the minutes come out. When the minutes come out, this is basically like looking at what was going on behind the scenes at the prior FOMC. So people are going to hyper-analyze that, and they're going to make assumptions about what might happen to the interest rate in the future, which can really move markets. We've got nothing really on Thursday to speak of. Typically, the unemployment data comes out that day for the U.S., but it's coming out a day early. Maybe they change that for this year. And on Friday, we have Canadian data coming out at 8:30 AM EST, along with USD data. At the same time, unemployment rate, more non-farm data, and average hourly earnings. So heavy week on unemployment data coming out. So any of these items can push markets around, and the USD items can really push around all the markets, while the rest of the items can push mostly Forex markets around. So let's take a look at the charts. Bitcoin, we have a prediction that I made in our live show going back to Friday, and this has been pretty darn accurate. I made this, I believe, for the private members only. I may have made it for the public, I'm not sure, but this is super accurate what I've done. The big arrow here is whether or not we're about to see a breakout, whether or not this is a blast-off point. Let's get rid of that. This first yellow arrow in the series of possible other paths were what I did back on Friday. However, this additional bit right here is what I've forecasted for today. Now, this is on the 3-hour chart. Usually I've been doing this on the daily chart, but I wanted to get a little bit more detailed. Now, this is a general idea of how things can go. It may go a little differently, but as long as it follows this general pattern, it means that my ability to predict has been relatively on point. But I want to temper this with the fact that on Wednesday, we have FOMC minutes coming out, and so Wednesday we might see a bit of a change. Let's just say my prediction's pretty accurate. When the minutes come out, this might diverge. And that can happen with any of the charts we're about to see. So bear that in mind. I'll put a line there. Let me go ahead and get rid of some of these older predictions. This was a few weeks ago, this blue line. We're going to leave this red one here as it is to show that it is a prior prediction, and we will move on to Solana. Again, I do think that we're going to see a rise in Bitcoin. I think it's ready to take off. And as you can see, my prediction of the weekend was pretty darn accurate. Algos are bullish. Might see a run again at 103,000 and then possibly at the all-time high at 108. And if it gets past that, then we're looking at 113. Now, Solana, I think, is going to be bullish, but maybe not quite as bullish as Bitcoin. It might be that if Bitcoin takes off really hard, Solana kind of takes a break. So I have a contingency to see Solana just kind of go sideways, maybe a little bit up. But remember, we do have FOMC minutes coming out on Wednesday, so we might see around this time a pretty strong divergence from this chart. There's also the chance that after it diverges, in whatever direction it does diverge, it might come right back to the prediction, so that's a possibility. EURUSD, I do think there's more down, but I do think that we might see a bit of a rebound. This was a pretty hard move down. I did predict it, as you can see by this rain of blue and red and all this crazy arrows. Going back to early December, I predicted the price would head down. I've been very accurate with this so far. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this old blue prediction. Now, the red prediction I did predict out abnormally a couple of weeks. Don't normally predict out that far. So for now, this is what I think will happen. A bit of a slight move up, maybe a pop-up to grab liquidity from this prior consolidation that is between 104.72 and 105.95 or so, and then I think price will head down after that. Of course, this can change, and we'll put the line on Wednesday for the FOMC minutes. minutes, price could diverge pretty severely at that time. As a matter of fact, this pop up is kind of a prediction that might happen. With these announcements come the ability for the large banks, companies, asset managers to mess around with the rates and maybe jump up to grab liquidity. So these types of things are not unheard of. British pound versus the dollar, aka the cable. Similar story here. We do have that possible pop up on Wednesday. It also could just pop down really hard. Now I put pop up because I think it's going to be a liquidity grab. That's my most likely divergence from what I would normally consider to be a move here. Sideways up and then back down. So I do expect price to head down towards $1.2275 or so. Right? Might not go that far, might go a little farther. The actual target is a little below that, but I think this is what it's going to look like for now. In the meantime, I will get rid of some of these old and very accurate predictions. This blue and this red. I'm going to leave the red up, but these older predictions are pretty darn accurate. I'm proud of those. Victory lap. Love taking those. USDJPY doing exactly what I said it would do last week with this red bit here, just kind of staying in this consolidation. Now, I do think this is overall bullish. So if it does pop out of this consolidation, which is between 158.10 and 155.97, if it breaks out, I believe it will be an upward move. However, again, we have Wednesday minutes. So when FOMC comes out, it could do just about anything. I think the main theme, though, is that it is going to continue to stay consolidated until it isn't, which is like saying that water is wet, but it allows us to make predictions on how to trade or not to trade. Let's move on to the SP500. I do think SP500 is actually going to continue to head up. I didn't even change last week's prediction. I just left the red one on there because, uncharacteristically, I predicted it out a couple of weeks. Rather than just doing 1 week, I did a monster prediction out for about 2.5, 3 weeks. So I'm going to leave that where it is because I think it's still pretty accurate. I do think that the plunge protection team is going to continue to do its thing. So I am going to get rid of these contingencies here to make it cleaner. Otherwise, I'm just going to get rid of these old blue ones and off we go. Remember, Wednesday, we have the minutes. So of course it can go ahead and throw things off. In the meantime, I think once price levels up, it may continue to go sideways after that. We're going to see what happens with those minutes and whether or not they are extremely impactful, but I think it's either going to stay up here or possibly move down below. I think it's going to be relatively uneventful until that time, perhaps as such. Let's look at the Dow Futures. Very similar. I think Dow Futures are going to consolidate in this area. Again, I had predicted out pretty far, so I'm going to leave that up. I'm going to get rid of these contingencies, at least these prior ones. Get rid of the old predictions, leave these ones up. I do think it's going to stay above here. It could diverge down, but I think we're going to see price stay above 42,550 and just go sideways into the rest of the week. So quite possible. And I'm going to leave it red because that's the color it was to begin with. I'm just going to stretch it out a bit, and there we have it. NASDAQ, I do think might go a little bit lower than I had originally predicted. It looks like it needs to catch its breath compared to the other indices because, again, it was outperforming, and it does seem that we're seeing a lot of this going on here where the NASDAQ will outperform and then it will underperform. It seems to be a bit more volatile, which is just fine. That's tech. Tech has been volatile. We make money on volatility. I think we're going to see tech reapproach 20,950, 970, and then go sideways a bit. But again, we've got Wednesday. Just want to keep pointing that out. Anything can happen right here during the minutes. So watch out for that. Get rid of these old predictions. And let's move on to gold. I think gold's going to go sideways. I thought it would go lower, but gold's actually headed up just a bit. So this is an indication that the yellow metal is still going to be hot like it was last year. It's at least going to go sideways, I think, for now. So I think gold's probably going to peak up just a little bit when the market really gathers a little bit of steam. I think it's going to approach about 2670. And it's going to go sideways. It could go a little higher or lower, but I think in the end, we're not going to see a ton of action this week in either gold or silver. So let's take a look at silver. I think silver might head up just a little bit more. Silver does have a bit of an issue with suppression that has to do with some items on the administrative side. So in the end, silver has a politically sensitive price, and that's $32 an ounce. So anytime it approaches that, it gets knocked down. Anything you knock down tends to want to come back up. So silver could just continue in between about 28.60 and 29.80, or it might pop up above and go grab some liquidity up around 30 and then go sideways after that, 30.40 to be precise. Might not get much above that, but again, that's not much to talk about. It's all very sideways, all very calm. So we'll see how this goes. Now, if you want to know how these predictions are done, and you can see that these predictions are pretty accurate, And anytime you can predict where price is going to go, you can extract money from these markets. If you want to see how it's done, come to algofactory.tech. We teach people how to do this. You don't have to know a bunch of math. You don't have to know how to computer code. It takes time. It takes effort. It's like a marathon. Marathons are not easy, but they're very simple. I could teach people of nearly all education levels. We have a lot of people who are actually traders already, and they know all this kind of stuff, and they just want to come in because they're not profitable. So if you're finding that you're not profitable, or if you want to learn how to do everything, come to algofactory.tech. We will help you get started. Learn how to trade like a hedge fund pro. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.